Hey there, welcome to the Posit Data Science Hangout. I'm Libby Heron, and this is a recording of our weekly community call that happens every Thursday at 12 p.m. US Eastern Time. If you are not joining us live, you miss out on the amazing chat that's going on. So find the link in the description where you can add our call to your calendar and come hang out with the most supportive, friendly, and funny data community you'll ever experience. Can't wait to see you there. I would love to introduce our featured leader today. We're talking to Jamie Shive, Director of Data Science at the National Hockey League, or the NHL. Jamie, it's so fantastic to have you here. I would love it if you could introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you and something you like to do for fun.
Sure. Hi, y'all. So if I move very slowly, my camera doesn't lag with my voice. This was an issue when we were trying this out, so I'm going to move as little as possible so that my voice syncs with my mouth. So if I look insane, that's why. So, hi, I am Jamie Shive. I'm the Director of Data Science at the NHL. I have worked at the league for a year and I believe around 4 months. So for the hockey fans in the room, I started at the league in the middle of February. I actually started in the middle of the Four Nations Face-Off tournament, which was a very, yes, I love seeing a lot of nods. This is good. So huge time. Arguably the most exciting time to ever join an organization. I I've I am a hockey fan. I'm arguably much more of a hockey fan now that I work here. A little bit about the work that I do. So, director of data science. So, I oversee our fan data. So, we're doing predictive and descriptive models and analytics on our fans to help improve the fan experience. I lead. I'm a part of a team of three. So, I've got two wonderful, brilliant, incredibly kind and amazing data scientists that I oversee. The whole point of my job is to help meet the fans where they're at, which is nice because selfishly, if I do my job really well, I get to have a better experience because of what I do. So that's me and what I do. My background, just really quickly, brief background. I'm a mathematician. That's what I was trained in. I studied at Virginia Commonwealth University. I got a bachelor's in applied mathematics. Went on to do my PhD in systems modeling and analysis. My research focus was in discrete mathematics, graph theory for any mathematicians in the room. So that is what I did my dissertation in. Had an extraordinarily non-traditional path to find my way into sports. This is not the plan. This was not what I thought I would be doing when I was growing up. It is where I landed. I could not be happier to be here. This is the right place for me to be. Um, to speak a little bit about my non-traditional path, my fun fact, one interesting thing about myself is that I do recreational ballet now as an adult, but for the about 15 years when I was growing up, I did ballet very seriously and I wanted to be a ballerina.
Aha, there lies this was not the plan.
This was not the plan.
So math wasn't even the plan, and I can identify with that. There's a bunch of people in the chat who are throwing love behind having a math background. Also, Sadie said that she got to ride a Zamboni at a Canes game. Gosh, that would be my dream.
I've never been
Amazing.
on a Zamboni.
No, that sounds like so much fun. All of the little like fun facts from everybody are like hockey based today, which I love. So
That's
Jamie,
great.
tell us something that you like to do for fun.
Um, mine was going to be so boring. It's watching hockey. That's what I do in my free time. I call myself club agnostic or club secular, depending on how you want to think about it. I don't have a team necessarily, and it's probably for the best interest of the league if I just remain impartial here. But I will put on any hockey game that is on. In order, though, I like to watch any sport, so it'll be hockey first. Um, baseball if it's on, basketball if it's on, football if it's on, but it's usually hockey first. Ballet is what I like to do for fun now in my free time. I take a class once or twice a week, just as recreationally as an adult. One of my favorite
That's
things.
awesome.
Yeah,
That's amazing. You have a fellow ballerina in the chat too. Trisha says that she's a ballerina too.
love
Well,
that.
I would love to hear a little bit about, like, just as a context building question for us so that we can ask good questions. There are so many things inside of sports analytics, so many things that can be analyzed, but you work on fan analytics. So I'm wondering what that means. If you could like give us an example so that we understand what type of tools you use, what type of analytics you do, and then also sort of like how data helps solve fan problems or improve fan experience across the league.
Yeah, absolutely. I did just see pop up in the chat. Somebody asked why we don't call it fanalytics. We do. Oh, we do. Trust me.
Nice.
It's not popular. I have been told that it is corny and cheesy to call it fanalytics, and I do not care. I am corny and cheesy, and I'm going to call it fanalytics anyway. Working with fan data, um, folks will come and interact with the league in some way for the most part. When you're a hockey fan or someone who's gone to a hockey game or something like that, you're a fan of a club, you're a fan of a team, and those teams will collect data about when you go to games and what you do. So sometimes that data will get rerouted through the league if you come and interact with the league in some way. So sign up maybe for an NHL.com account, maybe play Bracket Challenge or something like that. And then we will take a look at sort of the behaviors, the ways in which you engage, try to find trends. And through those trends, we start to take some action items off of those. So, what is driving you to go to a game? What is driving you to make a purchase? When you go to the game, what do you do in there? Do you buy food? Do you buy merch? Do you get to the game 20 minutes late because there's traffic? And how can we help make sure that you have the smoothest experience possible? So that's generally overarching the North Star of what we do. Maybe a project that I've overseen, for example, we did a fan sort of personas clustering exercise. That was something that I oversaw. So got 30 or so million fans in our warehouse right now, all with unique personalities and unique ways of engaging with the league. But in some senses, there are ways that we can group you all together to make it a little easier to digest and figure out how to action off of you to meet you where you're at. So we took the 30 million fans and squished you all down into about 14 unique personas of fans based on their behaviors. So digital engagement, so ways in which you've come and interacted with the league specifically, just so that we can figure out how to better reach you. It's a lot easier instead of trying to find 30 million different ways to reach a fan. If we maybe just tried 14 instead, that's a little bit easier to attack. That is an example of what we do here.
Awesome. Well, what kind of tools do you use? Are you a Python team, an R
Mhm.
team? Do you use a ton of SQL, Power BI, stuff like that?
Yeah, so Python and R over here. It's pick your favorite. So both of my data scientists and then a variety of other analytics folks under the team, they get to pick whichever they want, whichever makes the most sense. And through doing that, there's a little bit of learning that everyone can do, so everyone can kind of do a little bit of both. I like to think that everyone here can read both languages, which is a good start. So Python, R, we've got Tableau as our BI tool. Um, we've our Snowflake warehouse, and so SQL all day. I think that's our standard tooling here.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for all of that context building.
Oh, it's my
I
pleasure.
think that was really helpful. So we have a question that I would love to start with because I find it super interesting. Um, I want to know as well. It's from an anonymous asker, and it says, one of the concerns with working in sports analytics is night/weekend work. Have you found that to be the case for you in fan analytics? Are you working nights and weekends, Jamie?
Boy, do I get out of here at 5 on the dot. The nice thing about I would say so fan and like fan work specifically so I'm not working with hockey stats data. I'm not working with things that are happening in the game. Fortunately for me, I'm not the one who's putting the like very fun and niche stats up on the screen during the hockey game that says like this is the second time someone has gotten 4 goals on their birthday or something I'm not the one that's doing that. So I don't have to be a part of that. Though that would be lovely. But working with fan data, there's a little bit of a slower pace. I don't work nights and weekends unless I'm feeling particularly passionate to do so, but that's a me thing and should definitely never be anything that anyone else takes from me. Um, and the nature of fan data is that I like to be strategic and thoughtful. And so it's a little bit slower moving. And that means that I build in a lot of extra time under promising, over delivering on a variety of projects to make sure that myself and my team, we can leave at 5
All right.
on
Well,
Monday through Friday.
some, some of the questions I see do have to do with game analytics, player analytics, and market
Mhm.
analytics. So if you asked a question about that, that is less in Jamie's wheelhouse. We might modify some of those questions so that they fit what Jamie does in fan analytics across the whole league. But Nor, you asked a question that I think is great. I'm highlighting it and I'm going to put it in the chat as well. So if Nor could ask her question live, that'd be amazing.
Hello, can people hear me?
Yeah.
Excellent. Hi, Jamie. I also come from a math background. I didn't do a PhD in it. I did bioinformatics instead, but it's very much a fan of graph theory. So I was like, yes, graph theory, yay. Um, and actually, one of my best friends who also did math also is a part-time ballerina. She did it. So yes, there's a lot
All
of
right, the community. Where are we? Let's find us.
But regarding my question, I guess what is unique to sports analytics, and I guess in your case, fan analytics, part of sports analytics, compared to other domains, and sort of tagging onto that question, what role do you think things like Polymarket are influencing the fan analytics sort of like realm of things as well?
Oh, I don't know much about the words in the second half of your question, so I'm going to ask more about them in a second, but I can start with the first half. We'll do the first half first. Unique to sports analytics and fan analytics. Uh, so the one thing that I didn't understand a lot about, but understand a lot more about now is the history of the league and its fandom and how that has an impact on sort of the avidity of a fan. And we're selling a product, but like, are we like what I'm the goal, of course, is to get people to come to games and to like make money. That's the thing that we're trying to do. But in order to do that, we need a variety of touch points to engage the fan and get them to come to the game. I didn't really understand, sort of coming from a very different background, just the different journeys that someone can take to becoming a fan. That is something that I ended up sort of studying here and in the first, say, 6 or so months of my job, was like, how does someone actually become a fan? And at what point do we decide that someone has done behaviors that we are now going to call them a fan? Like, what does that mean? And there are different arguments and levels about ways in which you can become a fan and the spectrum of casual to avid. But all of these things are new to me. I wouldn't say that they're necessarily new to fan analytics, but to me, that is a very different approach from sport to, say, different industry. Um, is something. But I want to answer the second part of your question as well. I think I don't know what the words mean, and that's
Yeah,
amazing. That's not
Polymarket,
amusing.
yeah, Polymarket is basically, and forgive me if I'm messing this up, people in the chat, essentially fancy prediction market, i.e. gambling, i.e. people who are very invested using
Yeah.
Polymarket, and so sort of like obviously there's probably like a big subset of fans that's like a big aspect of it. So like I guess how are you engaging them slash are you engaging them and things of like that.
Great question. I'm gonna come from sort of the like, let's just say we're talking about gambling. Like let's
Mhm.
just say that that's what we're doing here. So we're not engaging them, and not because we like there's no reason to, but just the sort of lack of data that we have in that respect. The league is actually quite cautious about the data that it collects. We really value sort of this is going back to the history of the league, but sort of the fan, sort of the respect that we have for the fan and their privacy. So we're very, very specific about ways in which we collect data. So if you're sports betting way far away from us, it's really unlikely we're going to even know you exist, except we probably are going to know you exist in some way. We just might not know that you are the one doing, say, sports betting. Certainly, you'll have come to us and interacted with us at some point if you're betting on hockey games, but it's hard to say. We don't quite have the connection. We do know that that exists, though, and I've theorized about there are a variety of ways I would love to incorporate sort of odds and things like that in our predictive models, especially when it comes to like what fan sentiment is around a game, because I think that's pretty much like a live connection to getting an understanding of how a fan feels about what is going to happen in game. Um, that's not a perfect answer. It is an answer.
It's an answer. Thank you so much. And thank you, Nor, for asking.
Yeah, thank
Um,
you.
and we had a question from Anna as well that I will highlight here. And let's see if we can get Anna unmuted in the chat to ask her question live. We may
Sure,
have
can you?
multiple Annas. Do we have it? Oh, there she is. Hey.
Hey, perfect. Hi, Jamie. My question
Oh.
is, what's the difference between working for a league versus working for a specific team from like an analytics perspective?
That is a great question. So I can only speak to what it's like to work NHL versus a club through the NHL. So the way that the data exists at the league versus at the clubs is quite different. So we've got every club has its own data team, just like mine, and own data warehouse, own set of tools, own philosophies around what it means to be data driven and how that shows up and who they support and what verticals they support. So they are doing their own data and analytics largely around um, getting season ticket members, or like how to fill the arena with people, what are the right theme nights to host, how do they get people to buy more hot dogs or more popcorn, or put the beer in like a really giant saber or like in an ice skate boot, and then how much is that going to sell? That's the sort of stuff that the clubs do, and then we at the league over here figure out how to engage the fans every other way, hitting them with emails during the off season, trying to get them to come and play games in our game zone, and using analytics to drive those. So finding the fans who like to come and play and then telling them to maybe make a bracket during bracket challenge. And then we will take the results of all of the analyses that we do and share them back with the clubs so that they can help that can help them make more informed decisions about the fans that they're working with.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for the question, Anna. That was great.
Yeah, thank
We had,
you.
we had several questions sort of around league versus overall NHL. I think that that gave us a good answer for a lot of those. We have so many questions in the Slido rolling in. Oh my goodness, everybody. Okay, Logan, you had a question and it was more around like player analytics, but you said that you would switch it around to be more fan analytics. If you would like to ask your question live, I will let you do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to
Here it
say,
is.
go Canes. I just had to say,
Had to.
North Carolina born person, gotta
I
say it.
love it.
So yeah, I asked this, and it's a bit of what you just answered, but I was wondering kind of how you support teams if they have their own, or if you do a lot of supporting teams when working with their fan analytics. Like I know Eric Trolsky, our GM, is like a big analytics guy.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know how you guys, the league, might support them in different areas, but it kind of something you talked about, so maybe I'll just say go.
There's more. I can say more. I can definitely say more. I did leave out one sort of part of my job, not intentionally. Honestly, I do a lot of things. Sometimes I forget what I do. So I can at least speak to a little bit more about the ways in which I specifically work with the clubs. I think this is probably helpful. So in addition to all of the work that we do to support from sort of an analytics perspective, I also in my effort when I started here to learn as much as I possibly could about the history of the league and the clubs and how we could best support them, I set up time to talk to sort of one data/analytics counterpart at each club. So 32 different folks, one from each club, ballpark in the data science and analytics realm. I now talk to each of those people and some others, maybe 1 to 2 representatives from each club quarterly, where we talk about the projects that they are working on, if they're considering a switch in vendor, moving tools, maybe moving their warehouse, migrating that, something like that. If they are getting pushback from their C-suite about trying to implement AI in some way. We talk about all of those things. It's very casual. It's very I think how we're talking right now is casual. I don't know how you all feel, but it's very much like this. So we just chat. In some senses, I do feel like it is a catch up / vent session every once in a while. But I have worked really hard to maintain those relationships because I think it's really important to know what the clubs are working on so that I can figure out how we can best support them. Most of the time, my support is commiseration, but that's okay. That you never know when it's going to be more than that. But sometimes it does turn into actual projects where, say, my data scientists are working on the personas model that they were just working on. What if we took that and filtered that down on a club by club basis so every club could see their club sort of against league average? And with a personas model like that, that tells the clubs what makes their fans unique to them against sort of the overarching hockey fan. That's interesting information. And how many of them are in each persona and what can they do off of that? Then we can have a conversation about that. So that's how I specifically think I make the most impact in supporting the clubs. I also host a business strategy and analytics workshop that happens in March, where I get all of those people, all of my friends. We are all in one room where they talk to each other about what they work on, the problems they're having. It's basically just a rinse and repeat of the conversation, except we've got like a giant community. That's my favorite part of my job.
That's awesome. Yeah, I work for the community college system in North Carolina. That's how they support us at the system.
That.
So that's really cool. Thanks.
That's great. Absolutely.
Go Canes.
I love this too. Y'all, if you want to talk more about internal data community building as well, we're going to be having a conversation that's all about that, like a special one outside the Hangout coming up in August. So look out for that to be able to register because this is my favorite topic too. Like getting people in the same room to talk about what they're doing and what they need help with or what they're building or what they're having trouble with is so magically transformative and helps with innovation and helps people get unstuck. Okay, well, we have a great follow-on to this. It was asked in the chat, and not in the chat. It was asked in the Slido by Amrit, and it also covers another question that was anonymous. So I would love it if Amrit could ask his question live, since it sort of covers two. And I will put your question in the chat as well.
Right, so thanks, Libby. Hey, Jamie.
Hi.
Earlier you mentioned about customer personas, but I was just wondering um, if you had any advice as to how do you map those segments that have been created to tell an actual story to the business like that you're working with. I've been in a similar situation in a fintech company where it was quite challenging to to come up with a story around those personas. So yeah, I was just wondering if you had any uh, two cents. Yeah.
So I do. One thing I will
Mhm.
say is when it came to creating these personas, one thing that I did sort of benefit from as a fan was being a fan. So when we did the personas exercise and came out with sort of these 14 really crispy, distinct personas, I could look at them and say, yeah, I've seen that fan before. Like I know that one. Like I know what's going on here. Had I not known that, had I not had the benefit of sort of being I'm not going to call myself an expert as a fan, but had I not had sort of that level of knowledge, I think I would have tapped in probably one key sort of stakeholder from each uh function of the organization to have them take a look at what we've produced and see if they have an understanding of who these fans are, if these are fans that they're also seeing and working with and familiar with. If the answer is yes, great. And if not, it doesn't necessarily mean that we go back to the drawing board, but it does mean that we maybe try an additional iteration to see if what comes out makes a little bit more sense. One way that we did approach this project that I don't think is new or novel, but did make a lot of sense for the business specifically here was to create personas that were just around digital behavior engagements. So it wasn't personas that included demographics. It wasn't demographics and psychographics and fan behavior. It was just the fan behavior because layering in the demographic data and the psychographic data produced giant clumps of nothing that told us anything about the people that were actually showing up in the building. We wanted them to be more distinct. I'm not going to get personas that represent all 30 million fans, but I can at least get them to ballpark represent the behaviors and then adding in the demographics and psychographics after to see where those people fell in those digital behavioral engagement buckets meant that we could take these personas and share them with every different vertical of the organization. And if they wanted demographic information, then we could add that in. If they wanted psychographic information, we could layer that on top of these personas rather than having those be the defining features. That was the most important part.
Mhm.
Awesome. And for anybody who has not worked like a segmentation project and you are interested in learning about it, it's really, really fun. Demographics is more like who the person is, maybe their like age or where they live. And then psychographics is more understanding why they are making the decisions that they're making. It's fascinating. You can work with like large scale survey data for some of this, market survey data. Super interesting. You can use PCA to do your sort of like clustering and who are these people. If you want a project and you want to work in fan analytics, that's the way that I would go. Go in.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay, so we did have a question that was anonymous. That was a follow-up to that, which was about that like segmentation. It was, do they change over time? Do you like, has it been long enough for you to recheck? Are you going to recheck?
This is the reason that I cared so much to do this project is, okay, so we know who's in the building, we know how they're behaving. what do we want them to do? Like what's the goal? What would be the goal of knowing who they are if it's not to take an action item off of it? So my overarching goal has always been find people in a cluster, find people in who are this persona, and see if you can move them. And what would it mean to move them? And can you is really the more important, I think, the more interesting question. The answer, if depending on how we've approached the project, could be yes or no, but that is what I've always wanted to do with this. So one of the behaviors specifically is like email engagement, who's opening emails, who's clicking on things. And say we've got a cluster of folks who always engage over email and love to play in sort of our game zone, say playing bracket challenge or lines. And we have a whole game zone, by the way. This is not an ad. This is just, it's fun. You should play in there. It's great. But they don't buy merch. They're kind of just like our chronically online folk. They don't really buy merch. That's not the name of the persona, by the way. I just made up that name, but I do feel like it encompasses sort of the vibe of the behavior. But they don't buy merch. So do we want them to? Are they going to? There's a couple of folks in there who are right on the cusp of maybe do buy merch. Why don't you hit them with an email? You know they open emails. Like, go and give that a shot. If you're going to try to get them to do a behavior, tap into the ones that they're already doing. Maybe make an advertisement or something on Game Zone, or add in some incentives or something like that to have them say buy merch if that's the goal here. So there's that. We haven't looked yet at who's moved. That is sort of off season. Because this happened, we kind of implemented this in the off season and have been tracking for a full season, and now I'm excited to see what comes out of that.
TBD. All right, that is exciting.
Sorry to leave you all hanging.
I was just thinking about how posit.co doesn't have a game section. Missed opportunity. Somebody pitches some games to add to a game zone on the Posit website. Lots of thoughts here. Could we make games in R? Would it be G Games 2 or DG Games 2? You guys get on this. Let me know what your thoughts are. Okay, so we had an anonymous question that rose to the top here, and it says, what is the most interesting insight about fans that your data has discovered, besides people in the game zone are not buying merch, but are opening emails?
Right. And you know what? Those are who we're going after. So come back and we'll see. Maybe they are buying merch now. So this kind of started, I'm sure it predated me, but I've always found this interesting and would like to continue the work to see if this sort of trend continues. This is largely coming from sort of our social space, social analytics and digital analytics, is the evolution of fandom, meaning how do people enter in and become fans, and who are they a fan of, and how do they sort of engage as fans. So to give an example and sort of where I'm going with this, when I think about fandom and how I grew up becoming a fan, it was my family is a fan of a team. I'm immersed in it. I was born into it. I didn't really have an option to be anything but the fan that the team that my parents and siblings and friends were fans of. And that's how I became a fan. That's the entry point, was through my friends and family. And I'm a fan of that team, die hard. You cannot convince me otherwise. Doesn't matter who's on it, doesn't matter who's leading it, doesn't matter how they do. I'm a fan of that team. That is sort of the traditional fan model. That's how it's been in hockey for a long time. We're seeing the early signs of evolution from fan of team to fan of players. players move teams. So the change then is we're approaching fan analytics sort of from the like on a club by club basis. This is what your fans are doing. But I'm thinking, I mean, we're years away from this, what it would be like to change the perspective of like fans of this player behave in this way. The reason that this is happening, the why of this, and sort of we've seen this a little bit more in the data, the way that we've seen this show up in data is people changing their favorite team on the website. Like, I
What?
know.
Wait, do you have profiles?
Yeah, so
So
you can
like,
select your favorite team.
oh, interesting. What a big indicator. Like somebody actually choosing something for
It's
themselves instead of you guessing, right?
And we are working on a project on that as well. Happy to talk more about that. But so it doesn't happen often because that's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to go in and be like, you know what? I am not a fan of this team anymore. I'm a fan of this other team, and I'm gonna tell the league. Like no one really does that often. But this is combined with our social analytics data and how our casual fans, who we don't have a ton of data on, but our casual fans are following the players quite seriously on social media. So the transition of your entryway into hockey was your parents had hockey on the TV all the time. You were always going to watch that team, and that was always going to be what shows up. The why behind this change is theoretical, still early and anecdotal, is the community now is sort of expanded to your social media community, your friends, your acquaintances, people you follow, people you interact with just through DM and not really much more. They're the ones who are putting the players into your universe. So it's less of a team focus and now more of a player focus. And so the avidity is for the player. And players can move teams all the time. It happens all the time.
Yeah, this is also pointing towards a question that I think I just saw pop up, but I'm trying to find it. There it is. It's an anonymous question that just popped in the Slido that says, are you noticing the younger generations like Gen Z and Gen Alpha acting different than older sports fans? And it's got to be one of those is that like for older sports fans or at a earlier point in time, social media wasn't part of the equation for fan analytics, right? What do you
That's
think?
absolutely right. Yeah. Yeah. And so the use of social media by and large for our younger generations. And so when we sort of have been doing these analyses on like, okay, who likes teams, who likes players, and there's a variety of different approaches to that, but a lot of it is when we're getting the signals that either someone is engaging through social media in a variety of different ways with a variety of different teams, or they're actually literally telling us that they have a new team, and then we can go and look and see like, they changed this, and that team made a transaction with this team, and now that player went there, and we've got it. It's pretty clear that's why that's happening. So of course, that is where we are seeing it when we overlay demographics. It did tend to be the younger generations. This is important to know because those are the ones who are going to be filling the building and are
Right.
filling the building soon. And as a gate-driven league meaning we make most of our money, actually basically all of our money, by people going to games. It does matter knowing that the people that are in your building are there with team spirit, but really with player spirit. And they've got
Hmm.
their own sets of behaviors and things that motivate them. They have their own economic and societal factors that we need to consider in order to meet them where they're at, whether it's like something around season ticket memberships, so like what's feasible for those folks, and sort of while also balancing the fact that we do have a variety of traditional fans here and they want the game that they know. That's challenging.
This is very interesting to me. As you're saying this, I'm thinking about all of this in terms of basketball because I can't help it. And I'm thinking like, okay, if Wemby left,
Right.
would fan allegiance go that way? Not if you are from San Antonio. Absolutely not. Like you would be go Spurs go, Team Silver and Black all the way, and like there would be no way that your allegiance would follow. But for people outside of San Antonio who are in love with Wemby, maybe, right? Like their allegiance might hop. Well, speaking of psychological questions, our resident deep thinker Adam had a question, and I would love it if he could ask live. Adam Taggart, I'm going to highlight your question and let me put it in the chat for everybody as well.
A resident deep thinker, I'll take
That's
that.
right.
Thanks,
Good.
Lavina. I appreciate it. Hi, Jamie.
Hi.
Thank you for everything that you've said so far. I kind of picked up on a few things that I want to add to this question. The question originally was that your background sounded like pure math, and you said graph mathematics. And the examples you were giving of fan analytics started to sound a little more like my background, which is exercise, cognitive, and social sports psych.
Okay.
So I'm not in hockey. All I know is what a Gordie Howe hat trick is. I don't know any teams. I don't know any players. I just know that. And my background was MMA, where the fan.
Hey.
Is that a good thing for you? I like.
Yeah, I started as I was a very big UFC fan, and my way through hockey was figuring out that hockey is just UFC on ice.
On ice. Oh, I like that. I might take that from you. But
please do.
What I was going to get to is that obviously there's this massive diversity in the fans, as you pointed out with the profiles, and there are some fans of MMA that I don't think I would get along well with, but then there's my community inside of the community, and I couldn't help thinking about diversity in your team. So you've obviously got this pure maths background. Do you have people with the psych background or other forms of data wrangling backgrounds? And do you think that sports analytics as a whole is diverse enough to cater for all of these different needs, or does it need a few more people in it from different backgrounds and foundations?
That's a great question. I'm going to answer the second part of your question first because recency bias and I remember it better. So yes, we need more. We need more diversity in background. Truthfully, to do a job like this, if you're on this call and you work in Python, you work in R, and you do analytics, like that's just the bare minimum. That's not something that's most people can do it. It's the psychology element of it and sort of understanding behavior is something that I think is really important, because that is how you see a trend and can put yourself inside of it and think to yourself whether this is something that makes sense or not. And if it does make sense, you can speak to it. And if it doesn't make sense, then you can go and figure out why. So I do think that's really important. So of course, my background, pure mathematics. Someone on my team also has a background in mathematics, and then another sort of like sports science and sort of analytics space. So that has also been really helpful because she comes at every project with this like and then this is what happened on the ice, and this is what the players were doing, and this is how the fans responded to that, which is like that I can't like that's quite outside of me. The more diversity that we have on the team, the better. We're talking about fans here. Okay. Fans are diverse, and I want the representation of the fan base to be represented on my team as well, so that we are reaching every fan where they're at, not just the ones that we hear the loudest.
Amazing.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for your question, Adam. I always love your questions. Okay. We had a question from Daniel, and it has an asterisk, so I'm going to read it for him, and I will also put it in the chat here so everybody can read it as well. And it says, do you have any advice for any new budding data scientist who wants to get into hockey sports analytics? Any kinds of data sets, projects, techniques that you would like to see in a portfolio?
I think if I were, say, hiring and taking a look, I'm such a bad choice for this because
that's okay. The chat can chime in here too, because we would love to know where the data sets live, where the like sample projects live, where the access to data might live that people are really interested in.
I would say at least that building a portfolio. If someone wants to work in sports, pick a sport for starters. Doesn't have to be hockey. If I were to say someone say included a portfolio in an application, I would click it, whether it was hockey or not. I'd piece through it. I would want to see a variety of projects that touch a lot of different aspects, areas of the business. It could be on ice or it could be fan. What I'd really want to see is you've done an analysis. Tell me why it mattered. Tell me what you can do with it. So the action off of that. So you're seeing a trend of something. Who would you tell about it? Why would you tell them? What matters from it? The most important part of my job and the job of my team is communicating what we see. It doesn't really matter so much if we just put numbers in front of people. The numbers are scary and hard, and they don't want to see them. They want to know what to do with them. So being able to show that aspect of it somewhere within your portfolio, like, here's what I see, here's what you should do about it. That's the part that I would care much more about. That's the part that I would take and say, this person clearly has the technical background, but they have the soft skill, the one about communication, that I care the most about.
I love that advice. I love it because an LLM can write any analysis you want now,
Anytime.
right? But it's not going to be in the room explaining things and answering all of the questions live, is it? So I love it. Also, everybody's being mean to this person in the chat, and I'm very sad. Okay. Thank you so much, Dan, for asking that very hard question. Daniel is a lecturer at a university, and he works with up-and-coming data scientists all the time.
Cool.
So thank you for being a representative for the people who are trying to break in and get noticed, as always, Dan. Okay. I saw an anonymous question in the chat. We have 8 minutes left, so I would love to ask this question and one more because we always try to get a career advice question in. But I love this one. It says, from Anonymous, has the recent rise in new NHL fans from the popularity of books or shows like Heated Rivalry and Off Campus affected your analyses?
Yes, very much yes. In that all of a sudden they were there. All of a sudden we noticed that the numbers were really different on demographic slices, who was coming to the games, who was interacting in a variety of different ways, who was new to the warehouse that we'd never seen before, and when did they enter, and was it after episode 4 of Heated Rivalry or episode 6 or 7? It's all of them. We absolutely saw it. And a lot of this analysis lives with one of our social analytics, our manager of social analytics, Hope, who is wonderful. She is the one who is sort of in charge of the follower counts are off the charts. The video views are off the charts. What are the demographics of those fans? They're new. We haven't seen them before. It was coincidental, but beautiful that it worked out this way, that one of our sort of league initiatives for this season, which it's always there, but we were working really diligently towards this North Star of growing the female fan base, which is a great idea. Love that. Should always be doing that. So we had sort of set up a variety of baselines and sort of like had these ways to track and trend and do analyses and figure out like where we were missing them, where they were coming in from, and how we can continue to nurture their fandom and what do they need from us to keep going. Turns out they just need more of them, and that's fair. That's great. So when Heated Rivalry and others came into existence, all of a sudden, everything was literally off the charts. Everything was off the charts. And we have a variety of wonderful employee resource groups here. One of them is for sort of the Pride folk. The Heated Rivalry was posted in that Slack channel just as like a hey for anyone who's interested. And that was how I heard about it. Then the first episode happened, and then the second episode happened, and then we knew that something very, very big and different was happening for us at the league because we could see.
How fortuitous too. It's not like the NHL was like, let's plan this thing that's gonna happen, right? Like it's just
truly we had
serendipity.
nothing to do with it, which is just really like as a representative of the league, I feel like it's important to say we didn't have anything to do with Heated Rivalry. And that's okay. It's really lovely that helped to show folks that hockey exists. Hockey's for everyone. Please come. Please enjoy it. You're welcome here. And that we could use that to sort of just nurture and grow.
And this isn't an isolated incident because somebody mentioned in the chat too, this is the Taylor Swift NFL effect. Also, when Ted Lasso came out, I think that, club football got so much more coverage and it was being talked about so much more than I'd ever seen it before between normal people, right? Who were just enamored with this Apple TV show, which I am too. I'm a huge Ted Lasso fan. So this is super interesting. I wish we could talk more and go on forever, but we have 4 minutes left. So Jamie, I'm going to ask you, do you have a piece of career advice, or is there something you wish you knew before you went into data science that would have helped you out?
Absolutely. I do have a piece of advice. So my piece of advice is when it comes to choosing where you work, so you want to do data science, you want to be in the data science space. Choosing where you work is largely down to choosing work that aligns with your values. And so doing data science somewhere, make sure that the work that you are doing aligns with your values. That is the only way to ensure that what you are doing nourishes you and makes you feel good at the end of the day, because you're going to be doing it for 8 hours a day. The way that I do that here, and the way that I ended up at the league here, my general core values are authenticity, transparent and honest communication, accessibility, equity, equality. And so everything that I do in the fan space is making the game as accessible as possible to all of the fans who are here and making sure that they can be themselves so that they can enjoy the game as much as possible. Every piece of work that I do touches those. And so my day is filled with like touching my values. So my piece of advice is to figure out what your values are, find a job that does those.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jamie. Thank you, everybody who asked a question in the Slido. There are so many still in there that we didn't even get to. Go troll through the Slido, everybody, and see what everybody asked. It's very interesting. Jamie, I'll send you the Slido afterwards if you would like to just for any FOMO purposes, be able to see. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you had a wonderful time. I know that we all had a really, really good time. Shout out to all the camera on crew for hanging out, especially everybody with their hockey backgrounds. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you want to save the chat today, you can click the 3 dots in the top right of your screen if you're actually on Zoom. If there were any links or anything that was shared. And next week, please join us, especially if you are a fan of the targets package, because we are going to be joined by Will Landau at Eli Lilly. He's a senior advisor of innovative statistics at Eli Lilly and also author of the targets package. And I am hoping that we're going to have Charlie Gao join us as well in the crowd to talk about some of the ways that targets and Mirai are working together. Amazing. I can't wait. It's going to be so much fun. I will see you next week. Jamie, thank you so much for joining us. I hope everybody has a fantastic week and weekend.
Thank you all. It was a pleasure.